The political calculation seems to be they'd rather have the ratchet people because at least they can raise money off of them and Trump. But I wonder what that means. Is that the politics that makes sense in your view?
Yeah, I was talking with Adam Kinzinger about her recently, and he described her as a grifter. I think that's what it is. She just sees what the opportunity is in Republican politics. And the opportunity right now is in making a scene, saying the most extreme things, and wrapping yourself all the way, to the extent possible, around Donald Trump. Now, she has done this perhaps better than anybody, with the exception of Matt Gaetz, and we see that's where it's getting them. But she has become something of the de facto leader of the caucus. We're all, focusing on Elise Stefanik, but really, the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy, is scared to death to cross her. That's why he doesn't do anything when she accosts AOC and chases her down a hallway. So they're really an extraordinary thing where they're being led by this first-term QAnon.
And I wonder, and we unfortunately lost the shot in our last block. We had a little bit of trouble with Skype, but, we had Senator Mazie Hirono on to talk about the abortion rights issue. And when you combine, Susan, a party where the leaders of the party, let's just be honest, are the teeny dater, but apparently who doesn't bother QAnon, Margie Q. Green, who is QAnon, Lauren Boebert, who's like the guns in her background check. It's a whole Madison Cawthorn, who's like Dream Vacay was Hitler's bungalow. You go on and on and on, these sort of freak show that the Republican Party is. You add that to the Arizona bananas recount, which even a Republican local official said, this is insane. Donald Trump saying that, it's unhinged, he said, because he said, well, they dumped all the ballots. You combine that with the fact that now Republicans, the far right, is on the brink of taking away women's right to choose. I wonder how you run any campaigns in the suburbs after that.
It will be difficult, and we have to look at the Republican Party now that it is a campaign, it's a party of personalities, not policies. They have nothing. When you see Marjorie Taylor Greene as a leading voice in the party, you've almost hit rock bottom. Unfortunately, I think we can go lower. The Republican Party can go lower, but she doesn't even have a committee, and she was a top fundraiser in Congress. She is bananas crazy and believes in Jewish lasers and all this other nonsense, and yet no one who... It really angers me. Sorry, Joy.
Yeah.
The people, her colleagues down there, know better. There are serious members of Congress there who know better and who should be speaking out. I do not know why this falls on Liz Cheney to say, don't believe the big lie, and why other members of Congress, even under, with the protection of her skirt, if you will, come out and say something. It's not that hard to speak the truth and take down some of this nonsense. If they don't, they will be deemed not serious. And I've been saying this for a while, Joy. I truly believe that the state parties will elect more and more crazy wackadoo candidates, and that the Republicans are in danger of not taking back the House because they're going to lose a ton of seats that they won in 2020.
And I wonder about that too, just as political sort of management of your politics. Essentially, you're saying that to be in our party, you need to think that, what do they call themselves? The cyber ninjas are a serious organization that it should be doing recounts. 67% of Republicans, people who call themselves Republicans still, do not believe that the current president of the United States is a legitimate president of the United States, so there goes another way to get in. And here's Liz Cheney talking about the impeachment vote and maybe one of the incentives for the people who maybe know better, play along. Listen to Liz Cheney.
If you look at the vote to impeach, for example, there were members who told me that they were afraid for their own security, afraid, in some instances for their lives. And that tells you something about where we are as a country.
Dana Milbank feared for their lives, meaning that even fellow Republicans believe their own base are dangerous people.
Mm-hmm. You know, it would be funny if the consequences weren't so dire. You can probably count, I've heard this from many members, on the fingers of both hands, how many Republicans in Congress actually believe that there was some skullduggery in the election, that it wasn't legitimately won by Joe Biden. And yet, there was this collective action problem where they're all frightened. I think that poll is very interesting. The fact that it's 67%, I'm surprised it's not higher, because 99% of Republicans in Washington are saying the election was stolen or the election wasn't legitimate. So I think, in a way, the elected Republicans are outdoing the base in terms of crazy. They think they're crazier than they actually are. A third of Republicans are saying, no matter what they're hearing from elected Republicans in Washington, no, we actually understand this was a legitimate election. There's a bigger market for truth, even among Republicans, than these cowards in Washington think there is right now.
Or, Susan, you're seeing fewer and fewer people identify as Republicans. Because, I've always had this sort of theory that most independents are basically people who are too embarrassed to call themselves Republicans. Isn't that the growing, sort of the growing party right now? People who are just so embarrassed by all this shenanigans that they're just becoming independents?
That's right. And to go back to the suburbs, in 2004, we saw a lot of Republicans change to being independent because they didn't want to be associated with the war and George W. Bush. Now we are seeing it. Not only are they changing their registration, people aren't registering. Why would you join the party? I mean, I ask myself every day when I'm still in it. I can't imagine actually signing up for it right now. But, the party doesn't care. I think Dana made a great point that people in Washington have no idea how their constituents feel. A lot of them want to move on and believe that the president was legitimately elected because he was. So yeah. I think that they're misplaying their hand.
Well, I can tell you one of the reasons when you hear interviews and you talk with Republicans and people who stay in it, abortion. Abortion is why they stay in it. So I want you, Susan and Dana, please stay with me, because we want to have you here, just in case this doesn't work. We're going to try it one more time to bring in Senator Mazie Hirono of Hawaii. Senator, hopefully you are still there. But,
I am here, Joy.
Excellent. Wonderful. The power of the telephone. I have heard interviews with Republicans who know all of the weirdness that's going on. The fact that Marjorie Q. Green, who is not a serious person, basically is the leader of the party alongside Donald Trump. They're horrified by all of that, the children in cages, and you show them all of that and they say abortion, abortion, abortion. So this is a key issue to a lot of Americans. But also there's a lot of fear, I think. A lot of young women are waking up to find out you may lose your right to abortion, to even get access to the pill. So I will ask you again, what happens if Roe goes down? Then what?
Then there's no longer a constitutionally protected right for a woman to have control over her own body. And so what's going to happen is all these states are going to continue to pass these kinds of limiting laws. That's what's going to happen, and that is right. You're right, Joy. One morning, when young women in our country are going to wake up and they no longer control their own bodies. This has been ongoing for years, this assault, the woman's right to choose.
Well, it feels like it's been ongoing for years, but it's always sort of seemed that Republicans want the issue more than they want the win. Because if they get the win, then they have to actually deal with the consequences of implementing this sort of Handmaid's Tale future. Women aren't going to sit down quietly and just take it. So I wonder if you think that the politics might shift if, in fact, they get what they say they want.
Well, right now, they think that they're at the brink of getting what they want because the Supreme Court is taking up the Mississippi case. And why would this court take up this case? Only to reaffirm Roe v. Wade. So you have Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and now Barrett. And who knows, they may be joined by the Chief Justice to undo Roe v. Wade. This is what's being set up by state legislatures all across the country. Hundreds and hundreds of these kinds of restrictive laws being contemplated and some passed.
I reference the Handmaid's Tale a lot because one of the things that happens is that this sort of group violently takes over and secedes essentially from the United States, forms their own government. But they are the hard right desire to control women, because I'm sorry, I don't think this is about children, because these same people are not in favor of universal preschool or health care for kids. They don't care if kids are locked in cages. It's about women. It's about controlling women. And so I wonder
exactly.
Well, I wonder if Democratic women have not been focused enough on the fact that these people are serious about controlling women's lives and bodies, and whether people like Susan Collins just got duped by people like Brett Kavanaugh, or whether no one has taken it seriously enough.
Well, there are a lot of people taking it seriously, and especially the right wing. They have been setting this up with dark money to get Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett on the Supreme Court to the tune of millions of dollars. So as somebody said, when climate change comes up, Republicans say, I'm not a scientist, but when a woman's health issue is being discussed, and they're all gynecologists. They truly don't want to have us control our own bodies. There's no other explanation, because hypocrisy doesn't even factor into what they're doing.
And you have the same sets of people who also say that my body, my choice when it comes to masks, because they essentially say I have a right to spread a deadly disease, right? But
Yeah.
women don't have a right to decide about childbirth. Go ahead, your comment.
Well, how fundamental could it be that one should be able to decide, a woman should be able to control her own body? How fundamental is that? And we don't have anything that does impose anything like that on a man, you know. There's nothing comparable that tells a man you have to do whatever it is that you anyway, there's nothing comparable, but this has been ongoing. The anti-abortion, anti-choice crowd finally think they got a Supreme Court that's going to go their way.
And they probably do. And so is this changing the conversation in the Democratic caucus about expanding the Supreme Court or legislating to protect women's right to choose?
And there are already bills to do that, as you probably know. And this is why when the court is so far to the right, and it's no longer, in my view, an objective court on so many of these issues, then we talk about expanding the court. There's nothing written in the Constitution about the size of the court. You can cycle circuit court judges through the courts. You can have term limits, although that's not going to impact the current members of the Supreme Court. So there are a number of things that need to happen, because we now have hundreds of these kinds of totally conservative right-wing, it's not just on the issue of abortion, but on climate change,